Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Like I said last night, we're going to go over Title 8 real quick. And Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. I see Brielle was down there looking for the video I did on the 12 tribes. It's called Jacob's Ladder, and I dropped the link down there for you. And then in the meantime, of course, the StreamYard link is down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. And we are going to get started with 8 U.S. Code. And first, we're going to take you all the way back to the beginning. U.S. Code, Title 8. And what's surprising about this set of codes is when we look at it, we find something quirky about it now. And like I said, they go through and they update these codes every so often. They'll do the first half for the first 6 months, and then the second half the next 6 months. So the first 6 months you'll see half of it the code in the CFR update, and then the next 6 months you'll see the other half update. And what we found here under Title 8, we have Chapter 1, General Provisions. General Provisions. We get down, we see down, it goes down to Chapter 15, Enhanced Border Security and Visa Entry Reform. So it doesn't seem to be a really big title to begin with. But when we look, it says 8 U.S. Code, Chapter 1, General Provisions. Repealed or omitted. So we click on it, and it brings up the next one. It says repealed or omitted, and then it's got the notes. So we click on notes. It says this section, or these sections, relating to citizenship were affected by the Nationality Act of 1940, former Section 501 at sequential of this title. That act was passed on October 14, 1940, to consolidate and restate the laws of the states regarding citizenship, naturalization, and expatriation, and in addition to certain specific repeals thereby, all acts or parts of acts in conflict with its provisions were repealed by former Section 904 of this title. See the notes below for history of individual sections. So this has a set of notes for the individual sections of this code that were repealed and omitted. And you see there's a lot of notes. A lot of notes. So let's go back. Elective franchise. Now this is where mom's in the hospital and she elects to franchise through a legal name. This is the enumeration at birth. Oh, watch this. Transferred. Sections 31 and 32 were formally transferred to sections 1971 and 1972, respectively, of Title 42, Social Security, Public Health and Welfare. The Public Health and Welfare prior to editorial reclassification or renumbering as sections 10.101 and 10.102, respectively, of Title 52, Voting and Elections. The next one, Civil Rights. Civil rights is just like the other one. Transferred, repealed, transferred, repealed, transferred. Title 42 of the Public Health and Welfare. Title 42, Public Health and Welfare. 42, Public Health and Welfare. This has to do with your nationality, folks. This is the enumeration at birth that was transferred through to the Health and Human Services through the probate of estates. Okay, this is what I was explaining about the state's Bureau of Vital Statistics and their state's vital statistics jurisdiction that is created upon the birth of everyone in the state. And that's a jurisdiction subject unto itself, exclusive by its own name and number that identify the record, nothing else. And as long as you keep entering data elements into that record, you're never going to be considered a national in the true respects of what you really are. You're, again, Jeremiah 1:5, you are sanctified and ordained to profit unto the nations. And as long as you want to clamor to be part of that group, you're going to be classified as part of that group. Like we saw in last night's video, society, whoever. The definition of whoever is the same as a person, except it includes society. So as long as you want to be a part of that society and act like the rest of society, they will treat you as such. This is the distinction between the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act and being a national. So let's take a look at the next one. Freedmen. Oops, omitted. Related to continuation of laws then in force. Related to enforcement of laws by former Secretary of War. Related to claims for pay or bounty. Related to retained bounty fund. Related to wives and children of colored soldiers. Interesting stuff that they've omitted, transferred, repealed. Alien ownership of land. Transferred, omitted, transferred. Sections 71 to 78 transferred 1501 to 1508, respectively, of Title 48, Federal Acquisitions Regulations. Omitted. 79 to 82, related to alien ownership of real estate in the District of Columbia, as specifically accepted from amendment by Act March 4th, 1897. Again, Title 48, which is Federal Acquisitions. Federal Acquisitions. Immigration. Immigration and Naturalization Agencies, Office and Stations. Regulation and restriction of immigration in general. Quota and non-quota immigrants. So you see, folks, they even have a quota on the immigrants they can allow or not allow in the country. This is what the wall thing is all about. Alien veterans of World War I. Exclusion of Chinese. Omitted, repealed, omitted, repealed. And that has to do with the next one. The coolie trade. The coolie trade, in case you guys didn't know, was another name for slaves, but it applied to the Chinese people because the situation was a little bit different with the Chinese, evidently. Evidently, the Chinese weren't merely just bought and sold, but they were bought and sold on the premise that they could buy their way out of slavery. But most generally, they never survived their servitude of merely 5 to 8 years because the servitude was so harsh and the mistreatment so harsh that they would often die in the interim. Then they have miscellaneous provisions. repealed, or transferred. The section relating to naturalization were in large degree affected by the Nationality Act of 1940, former Section 501 et sequential of this title. That act was passed on October 14, 1940, to consolidate and restate the laws of the United States regarding citizenship, naturalization, and expatriation, and just like the other one. Expenditures of the Bureau of Naturalization was repealed. See, I think this is when they came up. I'll have to do some more research on it, but I believe this is when they came about with the Bureau of Vital Statistics and started instituting the birth certificate and all that. Then we have alien registration, repealed. Nationality. Definitions, repealed. Related definitions and place of general abode. See various provisions of Section 1101 of this title. So we go to Section 01 of this title. Administrator means the official designated by the Secretary of State pursuant to Section 1104B of this title. The term advocates includes but is not limited to advises, recommends, furthers by overt act, and admits in belief. So if you have a court advocate, they're going to advise, recommend, and further by overt act and admit belief in. The term alien means any person not a citizen or national of the United States. So it's still a person. Blue line highlighted. Click on it. It takes us to 8 U.S.C. 1101, the same thing. The term person means an individual or an organization. The term individual is at 1 in 5 U.S.C. 552A, records maintained on individuals. The term application for admission has the reference to the application for admission into the United States and not to the application for the issuance of an immigrant or non-immigrant visa. So if you want to, this is the passport issue. If you think you need a passport to enter into France, the notation here is you're not entering into France, or it's an application to enter into France as a corporate entity, as opposed to an immigrant or non-immigrant visa. An immigrant or non-immigrant visa is the same thing as saying an immigrant or non-immigrant invitation. Term clerk of court means a clerk of naturalization court. Consular officer means any consular, diplomatic, or other officer or employee of the United States designated under regulations prescribed under authority contained in this chapter for the purpose of issuing immigrant or non-immigrant visas, or when used in subchapter 3, for the purpose of adjudicating nationality. Folks, nationality is not up for adjudication. Nationality is not up for adjudication. Not for me. I beg to see who believes that they can adjudicate who and what I determine myself to be. Greetings, JG. How you doing tonight, brother?
What's up, Wizard? How's it going, man?
Always good to see you, man. You're looking sharp tonight. All right. Well, we're gonna. Yeah. We're gonna continue on with this stuff about the nationality to show you guys the fallacy of making that false claim. Again, my life has always been based on Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before thou was cast from the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. We are the ones that are supposed to be creditors of the nations, and the credit comes through the words. We have to learn how to teach the proper words so that they have a proper effect that is good and profitable unto men. Diplomatic visa means non-immigrant visa bearing that title and issued to a non-immigrant in accordance with such regulations as the Secretary of State may prescribe. So like I said, a visa is different than a passport. So how would a non-immigrant get a visa? If you're a non-immigrant, then what are you? Do they ever explain what a non-immigrant is other than an alien? They never seem to use those two terms together. The term doctrine includes but is not limited to policies, practices, purposes, aims, or procedures. So ask them about their doctrines again and find out how much validity they really have. If that's all they are, is policies, practices, purposes, aims, or procedures. They're the ones putting this stuff in the code. And when you learn how to read it precisely as it is, you understand that there is no such thing as law according to man. It's just the letter of the law because somebody wants to use certain words to try to control you through your idiocy. The terms admission and admitted mean with respect to an alien, the lawful entry of the alien into the United States after inspection and authorization by an immigration officer. The term admission and admitted mean with respect to an alien, the lawful entry of the alien into the United States after inspection and authorization by an immigration officer. So when you're born in that hospital and they enter that document into the United States records, the United States record system, which consists of the record systems of all the states, it's that Bureau of Vital Statistics. It's a vital statistic record. Does that make sense? Remember, I said you can't be born in the United States. There's no birth registration in the United States. So effectively, if the birth registrations are in the states, then you are truly born in the state, and you are, in fact, an alien that was lawful, that had some kind of lawful entry of the alien into the United States. It's that person down at the hospital that's entering that general journal as a general ledger, the birth clerk. Remember the clerk of court? That's the immigration court. You were born in a foundling hospital. They got a lot of things about alien crewmen. An alien having residence in a foreign country. What's residence? Residence means the place of general abode. The place of general abode of a person means his principal, actual dwelling place, in fact, without regard to intent. So let me ask you, if that principal has an address, isn't the address the principal in those kind of cases? Isn't the post office that has the real estate investment trust, and they have an agreement with the local municipality that named the street? Are they placating that they have the principal interest because of that address? Seems kind of odd to me that anybody would claim principal over me or my belongings in any situation, let alone placate that maybe it's the address without stating so. Again, I urge everybody to realize They taught you to write that legal name with its address and gave you a social security number so this system would work against you, so that you would work for this system and hand everything over anytime it needed something. So let's go back. Come on. All right. So we're back at 18 or 8 USC. They've got nationality at birth, nationality through naturalization, loss of nationality, miscellaneous, naturalization of persons serving in the armed forces of the United States during World War II. Excuse me. So, naturalization of persons serving in the armed forces in the United States during World War II. So the naturalization of all the people in the military during World War II, no matter who they were, was a naturalization of parents so that the next generation would all be born citizens of the United States through paperwork only. That's the only way you could be a national of the United States. And again, remember, folks, the United States is not a nation. It's a corporate entity, and it is located in the physical geographical boundaries of Washington, D.C. It is merely the record that they keep. And when you're enumerated at birth, that's an entrance into the United States record-keeping system as a commercial item. They're the ones that regulate commerce, not the states. So let's take a look at the next thing, which is the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. This is from Travel State Gov, U.S. Department of State, Bureau of Consular Affairs. Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act, the information relating to the legal requirements of specific foreign countries is provided for general information only and may not be totally accurate in a particular case. Questions involving interpretation of specific foreign laws should be addressed to foreign attorneys. This circular seeks only to provide information. It is not an opinion on any aspect of U.S. foreign or international law. The U.S. Department of State does not intend by the contents of this circular to take a position on any aspect of any pending litigation, and the same goes for myself. And you see over here at the side, it's got U.S. citizenship laws and policies, international judicial assistance. So when we have a problem with the local judicial system, we have an international venue we can go to, and that's through the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. What is the role of Department of State to assist in effecting service on a foreign government? Now, this is what I talk about with the diplomatic service, where they have a certain section, 22 CFR 93.1 and 93.2, that talks about the diplomatic service of notice. This is technically what they're supposed to be doing because we are foreign to the corporation. And by them imputing that we are a part of that corporation upon birth is a violation of the service process later on in life. It's one of the things that we get indoctrinated into believing that we're part of this state. No, we're not. It says Department of State oversees citizen services, formerly special consular services. And it says overseas citizen services here because they're trying to separate and say that everybody here is born in the United States. And again, if the United States is located in Washington, D.C. and has no birth registration, and I was born supposedly of the Republic of Iowa and they are the ones that have the birth registration through their corporate entity, which is a franchise of the United States, then they better get their damn paperwork right. Because if I can understand it and explain it to them, and they're working for these people and don't understand it, then they are incompetent. It's part of the reason this system doesn't work for you. Is responsible for providing service of process on foreign states under the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act through diplomatic channels in accordance with 28 U.S.C. 1608A4 and implementing regulations. That's a contract term. Remember, Title 48 is the acquisitions regulations we just spoke about, and Title 48 of the Federal Code, 48 CFR 52.212-5. Again, contract terms and conditions required to implement statutes or executive orders - commercial items, commercial services. It has to be a contract, and it has to be a contract with the federal government and a foreign state through a foreign trade zone, which is a resident. No person shall reside in the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board. 22 CFR 93.1 is the diplomatic channels of notice, and 93.2 tells us that they have to be of the same capacity. In other words, they cannot be a public plaintiff going against a private defendant. They have to be public corporate entity versus public corporate entity in these administrative corporate courts. They are not supposed to be going after the private man. This is the distinction of the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. In addition, the Department provides assistance under Section 1608B, providing information about service pursuant to letters rogatory or applicable international conventions on service and transmitting letters rogatory through diplomatic channels. And I'm telling you once again, it is the letter rogatory in regards to subrogation that you use to switch everything around. You don't have to call it a letter rogatory, but all you have to do is explain that you understand how the judicial system works, how it puts you in that system as some supposed officer, and that it was never completed. In that, if you have a desire to need me as deemed necessary, I might be willing to fulfill the requirements. So let's go ahead and check those out and see if I can. Because if I can't, then it's an impossibility and you can no longer presume a goddamn thing. This is the end of it, folks. All you have to do is learn how to stand up. Know the differences about how this stuff works and get on with it. Facilitating service pursuant to the FSIA is the Department of State's statutory obligation. That is their, I don't give a fucking rat's ass about the territorial jurisdiction. I don't give a rat's ass about the subject matter jurisdiction. I don't give a rat's ass about the personal jurisdiction. It is an action in rem on the property and under their statutory under their the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. They have a statutory obligation of making a judicial determination before they go taking somebody's property. And that is the problem. They've already entered everybody into the judicial system as if though that adjudication was already done, and it never happened. And the department has no discretion in complying with the act, provided a complete and appropriately compiled request is received, absent a clear indication the hierarchical methods of service set forth in Section 1608 were not followed, and diplomatic channel is available. The diplomatic channel that is available is the assigned trustee, registered agent, United States Postal Service. It's a trust. They are the trustee. All you have to do is start acting like a beneficiary or benefactor. knowing the terms and conditions that they're liable for, obligated to, and responsible. That's your enforcement, the knowledge. Again, that's the benefit. Without that knowledge, you're never going to be able to figure this out and tell them what their job is, because they truly don't know. Most of them. The next one. What is the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act? The Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act of 1976, Public Law 94-583, 90 Stat 2891, 28 U.S. Code 1330 through 1332A, 1391F, and 1602 to 1611, hereinafter the FSIA, limits the role of the executive branch in civil suits against foreign states, including their agencies and instrumentalities. Limits the role of executive branch in civil suits against foreign states, including their agencies and instrumentalities. The birth registration is such instrumentality. The FSIA establishes a default rule that foreign states are immune from the jurisdiction of U.S. courts. In every state, it does not have its own court. It is a court of the United States. It's a foreign trade zone court. Unless the action falls within one of the specific exceptions set out in the statute, which they are obligated under. 28 U.S.C. 1604 through 1607. Read them, learn them. We're going to go over them briefly. The FSIA Act prescribes the means of service for suits against a foreign state. If they're not following this suit, then they are treating you as a domestic, and that is the violation. Again, only because you were taught to use the legal name with a legal address and give them that Social Security number. You unlearn that, and find a new way. Political subdivision, agency, or instrumentality in Section 1608. The FSIA provides that personal jurisdiction will exist in cases brought against foreign states only if an exception to immunity in Section 1605 applies and service has been made under Section 1608. You walk around acting like an officer of the United States, accepting mail through the Postal Service for such legal entity, and using such legal enumeration without knowing how it operates and knowing how to protect yourself, then you're using something that you shouldn't be touching until you know how it's used. And then, if there is one created by the state, you should be able to collapse that and establish your own. And they even tell you the settler has the right to come forth and revoke the trust. See 28 U.S.C. 1330B under the FSIA, decision on state immunity are the purview of the judicial branch. Decisions on state immunity are purview of the judicial branch. And that's what I'm saying, folks. I'm not going to go in there and contest their title or their office. I'm not going to contest their territorial jurisdiction, their subject matter jurisdiction, or their personal jurisdiction. I'm going to go in and make a claim judicially that we both have immunity because we've both been misunderstanding how things work, and it's time to sit down and talk like big boys and girls, quit fighting about things, and come to a real peace. Because we all know none of us really wants to hurt the other one, right? Then let's be reasonable and sit down, fucking talk about it. You don't need to be waving your fingers at everybody and making false accusations based on false information that you don't understand because you think everybody's the same as you. That's what the system indoctrinated you to believe. Every last one of us is foreign from our mom and dad, even. Every last one of us is foreign. When it comes to our rights and responsibilities in life, we are foreign and we are able to govern ourselves. Those that don't want to, they can subject themselves to that governance. But again, doing it through a false identification doesn't make it true, right, or anything. It's still wrong. If you're not qualified as an officer in that public trust, then you're not required to have that kind of identification. You're not required to fulfill those kind of duties and obligations. It's time to realize you have a greater obligation and duty to the truth, and that's a profit unto the nations. And I'm telling you, folks, if this is the kind of people we have in this nation, it's a weak fucking nation. If that's what you want to call it, a nation. It's United States is like, again, a corporation. But if you want to call it a nation, it's a pretty fucking weak nation. I don't care if the rest of the world sees it as a strong nation or not. I see it as a weak nation because they weak up here. They weak up here. You can be strong in the heart all you want and wallow around like some big dumb clod, but if you ain't got the smarts, you're swinging and missing. That's all you're doing. You can have all the strength in the world. You're going to swing and miss. What is the restrictive theory of sovereign immunity? Pay attention, folks. The immunity of a state from the jurisdiction of the courts of another state is an undisputed principle of customary international law. Until the 20th century, however, sovereign immunity from the jurisdiction of foreign courts was characterized by an absolute approach. So now now that we've entered the 20th century, we don't have such an absolute approach, and this is the problem. People don't regard that as absolute anymore. They take that presumption that we're all somehow lineated together in some kind of similar society, and therefore everybody is subject to the exact same laws. It doesn't work that way. However, as governments increasingly engage in state trading and various commercial activities, it was urged that the immunity of states engaged in such activities was not required by international law, and that it was undesirable. Immunity deprived private parties that dealt with the state of their judicial remedies and gave states an unfair advantage in competition with private commercial enterprise. This is where they talk about that supposed Penhallow versus Doan's Association, where they say if the government steps down into a corporate capacity, they lose their immunity. And that's the theory we're talking about here. That's not a valid quote from that case. It is a valid quote, but not from Penhallow versus Doan. I will have to see if I can search it up and find it again. But it's actually from a case that was listed in somebody else's research in a case right below the Penhallow versus Doan. But it is a valid quote, and it is a very valid theory. The restrictive theory of immunity spread rapidly after the Second World War. The United States expressly articulated the restrictive theory in the 1952 Tate Letter, and the theory was codified by statute in 1976. Under the restrictive theory of sovereign immunity, a state is immune from the jurisdiction of the courts of another state, except with respect to claims arising out of activities of the kind that may be carried on by private persons, such as private trades, private exchanges, private commercial activities. Under the restrictive theory, a state is immune from any such exercise of judicial jurisdiction by another state in respect of claims arising out of governmental activities. It is not immune from the exercise of such jurisdiction in respect of claims arising out of activities of a kind carried on by private persons. So long as they stay in their governmental discretion, their governmental office, and remain within their rights and obligations there, then they have immunity. Once they step outside of that bounds and start acting under the influence of emoluments, then they can be held as a valid claim. But that's why I plan on using the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act as an approach to the piece of it. I'm not here to wage any war. Matter of fact, I'm here to recognize your immunity and come clean with equal consideration and equal benefit through the Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. What are the general exceptions to the jurisdictional immunity of a foreign state? It says under the FSIA, a state is presumed to be entitled to sovereign immunity unless an enumerated exception applies. That enumerated exception is the enumeration at birth. That's an exception to the immunities because you now become recognized as an officer in that public trust. Just like they say you're a Medicare qualified government employee, you become a qualified officer. Though you're not fully qualified yet, you've been entered into an education and training system to teach you how to be such an officer. And it is a military system from start to finish. Greetings, Tarek. How you doing, brother?
Good, Wizard. How are you?
Good. Going over this foreign sovereign immunities, trying to help these people understand every last one of us is foreign to each other, and we're foreign to the corporate entity, we're foreign to the nation. Even if you are born a national, you are still foreign to the nation, and you are only a national when you so choose to use that national representation through the identification. Otherwise, just like any actor, any singer, any entertainment star, any politician, you have the right to multiple identifications. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, you can have a passport in 2, 3, 4 different names if you want. It's your choice. And that's what they're using to disposition everybody, is that name and nationality, when in fact, they're after the property. If I'm the property and I'm his, and everything I touch is his, then they really shouldn't be able to come after anything. It's because I don't recognize myself as his, but rather I recognize myself as one of the nations. Now the nation can come after me and take everything I own because of my very own claim. That's the stupidity of this. So let's take a look at the next one. We're going to go to 28 CF or U.S. Code Chapter 97, Jurisdictional Immunities of Foreign States. And this is the 1602 through 1607 that they were talking, or 1611 they were talking about. And notice it says certain types of property immune from execution, because that's what they're after, folks, just like I just said. They're after the property. Now here it says findings and declaration of purpose. Here we're going to find something instead of finding that it's been omitted, repealed, or otherwise. We're going to find an actual finding, declaration of purpose. The Congress finds that the determination by United States courts of the claims of foreign states to immunity from jurisdiction of such courts would serve the interest of justice and would protect the rights of both foreign states and litigants in United States courts. Under international law, states are not immune from the jurisdiction of foreign courts insofar as their commercial activities are concerned. They're immune as far as their political activities go, their administration. But when it comes to the commercial activities, they are not. Okay? The
So,
international.
Wizard,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll
No,
wait.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. That's why I jumped in. I was listening to you when you said immunity. So, as a police officer, for example, if they have immunity, are you saying, for example, they can't lose that unless they get out of the corporate standing?
Right. Well, when they go out of their official duty, when they go out beyond their official duties, and again, I'm telling you, they're not supposed to be accosting the benefactors, and they're people of the law. They're supposed to know this. But the problem is, everybody presents an ID. It's a military ID. If you get out of
Yeah.
that, and then they still try to enforce it, they've gone beyond their scope, and now they're trying to enforce commerce on somebody that has no commercial ID. Oops. It really is that simple, folks. How do you force
I see what you're saying.
commerce? Yeah, how do you force commerce on somebody that has to have an ID in order to perform commercially if they don't have an
Yes.
ID to perform commercially? It doesn't happen.
Yeah, they're doing corruption. So
Well, it's
I'm
not
assuming that's
corruption. It's not corruption. It's knowing that you don't know. When you know that and get rid of
Yeah.
it, there's not really much they can do about it. But you really have to know it. You have to know how to enforce it in
I agree.
every aspect.
I agree with you. Is that why, like, these audit people, when the cop gets out of the scope, color of the scope, they say, I'm going to file 1983 U.S.C. whatever for a violation of civil rights? Is that what it is?
Yeah, and I believe they even mentioned that in
Okay.
here. That's one of the things they do mention. The Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act is Title 42, sections 1981 through 1989,
Yeah.
I believe. So let's take a look at this again. So again, we're seeing that it's all about commercial activities, and their commercial property may be levied upon for the satisfaction of judgments rendered against them in connection with their commercial activities. So this is where people try to go after some of these judges in the wrong context and end up in prison themselves with 30, 40, 50-year sentences. Be very careful with this stuff, people. These people are
Yeah.
nasty. They work together. It's a team for them, and they will gang up on you and throw you all in jail. Claims of the foreign states to immunity should henceforth be decided by courts of the United States and of the states in conformity with the principles set forth in this chapter. Definitions. A foreign state, except as used in section 1608 of this title, includes a political subdivision of a foreign state or any agency or instrumentality of a foreign state, as defined in subsection B. An agency or instrumentality of a foreign state means any entity which is a separate legal person. So that hospital that you were born at was a separate legal person, and they created as an instrumentality of the United States and as a instrumentality of the state in one of the states of the Union of the United States. All the paperwork. And remember our video last night, whoever, and it talked about society and paper and all this. Every piece of paper has some kind of value.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
watched that.
Yeah, it's an instrumentality of your signature and that paperwork cohesively together. It creates an implied contract. And if you don't realize this, every time you sign, you're signing up for an implied contract that is taking advantage of you and every bit of your property. They will come after it. United States includes all territory and waters, continental or insular, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And as you remember, that was the pretty similar to the jurisdiction of the Special Maritime Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States, which includes Admiralty and Maritime. A commercial activity means either a regular course of commercial conduct or a particular commercial transaction or act. The commercial character of an activity shall be determined by reference to the nature of the course of conduct or particular transaction or act, rather than by reference to its purpose. The commercial activity carried on in the United States by a foreign state means commercial activity carried on by such state and having substantial contact with the United States. I'm going to show you a code, and it's known as a 1031 exchange. And Mom was ahead.
Yeah. No, what does
Mom?
that mean, 1031?
A 1031 exchange is an exchange of real property held for productive use or investment. Okay? So when Mom goes to the hospital and she fills out that document as informant, and then the birth clerk enters it into the birth registry, they take it down to the county registrar and have the county registrar hold it. That's a 1031 exchange, and it was held for productive use or investment by the county in which you were born, and they invested it in a a burial trust. So in case you passed away while you're in their custody, they can bury you.
Now, what are a lot of these moms doing nowadays when they're giving birth?
We do have a lot more moms giving birth at home in baby tubs or baby pools and stuff, and that's an excellent idea and all that. But just make sure that you create your own private journal, because that's what they're trying to do, is say, well, there's no record of it, we have to have record of it. No, I have record of it, and I published it in the newspaper. Make sure you give some kind of publishing, but don't expose the names. Like I said, the first two names are given names, and then you have a family name that you inherit. Okay, the family name that you inherit, everybody's obviously going to know what family you're from. But the given name, you have two given names. You keep one private, and you use the other one for public use. So that when you send him off to school, the first 5 years of his life, he learned that he was Johnny. But when you send him off to school, you let everybody know, to you, he's Mark. To us, he's Johnny. That way, when he grows up, you teach him the importance of the name and how these courts disposition you through the use of the name, and the importance of changing your name. When you become an age of majority, now you can decide to create your own name. And like I said, folks, you can have as many fucking names as you want. Ain't none of their fucking business. And if they want to make it their business, now you can charge them. Now you have something of your own creation that you can charge them. Hey, this is the name I'll use for working with you. This is the name I'll use for working with you. This is the name I'll use while working with you. It's the same concept that Prince developed when he decided he was no longer to be known as Prince. He wanted to be known as something else, but he didn't know what he wanted to express it as other than a symbol. So it had no pronunciation.
Okay.
But Wizard, go ahead.
We have societies yet still today that have a spoken language but no written language.
So, Wizard, I get what you're saying, because I have like 5 different names, like my mom and my dad and my family call me like 2 different names, okay? And I have other names, and I used to do business with people, they used to call me T, Tony, whatever. Now, when you get to a certain age, you have to pick a name? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's just that by the way society operates, if you really want to be be the man and show that you know who you are and everything, you have to present yourself. You don't let other people make attachments. So it's always wise to create something for yourself, so that even in equity, a gentleman announces himself. So in being able to announce yourself, and I don't care if it's just a symbol that you can't pronounce. Still find some way to present yourself. It's the basic thing that they get or that they copy through the law of the flag. It's a natural thing that men do.
Okay, so
just,
JG asked a good question. Like, say you have a regular birth, right? You don't go to the hospital. How do you publish the name that you want to give to that baby when he was born in terms of like their system?
to publish the name. All you got to do is publish the fact that you have a new legacy heir that's been born.
Okay, and you send it to what? To courts or what?
No, just publish it in the newspaper.
Oh, I see.
Public notice.
As long as you make it, as long as you make a record.
Yeah. And then when it goes to like we discussed the other night with the presumption of public record, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing through the public record is establishing the fact that you created a private record for the legacy heir, and he is already recorded in that private record. That's the private journal.
You're using your family last name, right? When you're going in the newspaper.
Right. Born under the family such and such, we have a legacy heir or a legacy heiress that was born unto us this day and time. To be known in the future.
Yeah.
Greetings,
they don't need to know the
Keith.
name. Greetings, man. How you doing?
Greetings to all. I have a question for you, and I'm just trying to get the book so I can go back to it. But keep talking. I'll join you.
All right.
Now that's got to be a tough life for kids without having a social.
It is, I'm sure. I'm sure, but it's also one of studious knowledge and studying to shew thyself worthy and approved. See, again, this quote God that gives us instruction in the skies through all the things that he supposedly created is giving us instructions to follow Mother Earth's laws.
Yeah.
I don't think we're supposed to be following man's laws at all. And
Well, I wonder if the damn my fault.
No, go ahead.
I wonder if the Amish, right? If they have socials.
Now, most of them don't. There are some here in the later years that have been getting it. I don't know why they would do that. I mean, somebody's got to be infiltrating some of these people somewhere. Because that just, of course, it could be just that same as I believe of everybody else in this world. I think people are getting stupider and stupider, dumber and dumber, idioter. If you know what I mean.
Well, people aren't trying anymore. It's gotten too hard for people to the point where it's like, I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to conform. Going to comply.
When it comes to your children are private, only a free man guru would make their family names public. The family name is actually what you do your business in. That's why it's public. It's your name, your given names that you discern for yourself who you're going to expose them to.
Wizard, I'm not getting a notification. Is that happened to anybody or just me? I even know I have you notified.
I have no idea, brother. I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those guys. They shadow ban me just as much as the next guy. So
you gotta go to your settings and hit all alerts.
Oh, I did. I went on to notification.
Really late.
When it comes to the no need to claim children as property in the newspaper, if you're not contracting in commerce, the only reason I would place such a notice in the newspaper again is not as a matter of contracting or anything, but actually to protect from any contracting in the future by heralding not property of myself, but the legacy heir of our Father which art in heaven.
That makes sense.
Keith, what's your social security number, Keith?
It's not mine.
No, I'm playing.
So let's take a look at the next one here. as we go down in this one, this is that 26 code. Remember, 26 is taxation. So it's for a tax purpose, and it's the exchange of real property held for productive use or investment. That's that little document known as the certificate of live live birth, or statement of live birth. And what it is it says down in H, special rules for foreign real property. Oops, foreign real property. Foreign real property located in the United States and real property located, real property located in the United States and real property located outside the United States are not property of like kind. So when you go to the hospital, that's property of the United States, folks. When you walk into that hospital, that is a franchise they get subsidized by the federal government. All commerce is driven by the federal government. The states get their funding from the federal government through the acquisition regulations by acquisitioning things of value, making a deposit in a money fund, and then the federal government will match that funding. So the state is actually doing I'm going to call it privateering, but it's the actual opposite of a salvation. They're going ahead and taking things that are supposedly in a salvation type situation where they're making a claim against an estate that has been devalued, and they have to put value back into that estate. But the problem is, it's your estate they're attacking, and they're claiming it's their estate when they're only the administrator of it, and they're claiming that the default in that estate is because of us not knowing our job as trustees, and therefore we're liable as trustees. And this is all false. It's all been done through a usufruct of that paperwork that is being held for productive use, and we are the ones that are supposed to be using it for productive use. Guarantee you, that document is supposed to be going to the SEC with other documentation, qualifying it as a surety bond in the billions.
So is that like creating a fidelity account through SEC?
Well, yeah, you're creating a surety bond that's unregistered and offered. It's a private, unregistered offering. And this is the aspect of being a lender unto the nation, because now you can write that bond and exchange it with the United States to create that bond in amnesty, which is what's missing. They have the legal foundation, but it's never established its own bond, so the state is putting the bonds out. That's why you get the birth certificate from the Secretary of State.
So the people involved, when you're creating this particular bond as trustees, what title do they take on?
Trustor, right?
Well, I know they're trustees and so forth, but what I was looking for, because I had pulled up and I was looking, researching more on what you talked about on the the Bailey. And they're the ones that are holding, personal property. So are they considered the one that's holding property in these fidelity bond issues, or how does that go? Can you explain, please?
I have no idea on that aspect. I do know that the bailiff in the court, if you hand him a document, he is the bailee for you, the bailer. And he's supposed to hold that document in transfer to give it to the judge, and then the judge is supposed to give it back to him, so he give it back to you.
Oh, so if he's the information that the bailee is giving the other man or woman, they are the bailor. Is that correct or not? Am I misunderstanding something?
Right, and they're just taking it to transfer it and then give it back. When you give something to a bailer, they're not keeping it or anything. It's just so that they can hold it and then give it back for whatever purpose they're holding it for.
Okay. And how
So
would that absolve any of a situation in court, you know, with private
it
people?
doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. This is something you've got to do in private. You cannot do this stuff in court, folks. If you keep
Yep.
insisting on doing it in the court,
Okay.
they're going to take advantage of you as if though you're a trustee. You have to quit acting as a trustee. It's a must.
Okay. So their playing field is that whatever we do in court is between all the parties in court. We do that in chamber between ourselves, and all the things for private men and women, you guys do that between yourselves. Is that correct?
If you're going to go into court, you're acting in a public capacity. If you're going to deal with things privately, you have to do it in camera, which means in private. And I've never once been in chambers with the judge back in his own office yet. All my private shit is through the Postal Service.
Okay. So in private would be in communication with the other man or woman that you're corresponding to within a court setting.
Correct.
Okay.
There would be a witness, right?
Well, I would be a witness, and that's what I would enter in my private writing, is that I'm a witness and these are the details of my witness.
Don't you have to have two?
Me and my father.
Oh, okay, I get it. So you're speaking about yourself and God. I got you.
Yeah.
Right. But wouldn't it be three because it's yourself, God, and the document that you're communicating with in private? That would be the other witness?
No, that's what you're using to prove your first two witnesses.
Okay.
Then if they can't rebut it, now it becomes standing in law.
I have a question.
It's two or three witnesses. Go ahead, dear.
So becoming a U.S. citizen would
So
not
that's
be
like the
recommended.
phrase, it's two or more in my presence. So that would be two or more in my presence. That would be the creator in yourself, correct?
Correct. Sorry about that, just me. Go ahead.
It's okay. So recommending people to become a U.S. citizen, would that create a bigger problem for them?
Yeah, that's the problem. If you're going to be a United States citizen, that's a corporate entity.
Yep.
You damn well better know what you're doing. United States citizenship, there is no birth registration in the United States, so you cannot be born in the United States. Well, let's put it this way: there is no record of you being born in the United States, and there can't be any record of you being actually born in the United States, because the United States is a debtor, and it is located in Washington, D.C., and that debtor is merely a record. Remember how I showed you on my financial index? They listed the obligor, and what was the obligor listed as? A name or a number? It was listed as a number. The obligor is a number, then that means it's simply a file in a drawer.
Yep.
So once you hold
May I
citizenship,
also, I have this thought process too, Keith. There is people out here telling other men and women that they can index them, okay, and remove them out of the system by taking their private documents like Social Security card, birth certificate, identification. And they're saying when they do that, they are redeeming them, because I feel like the men and women that are doing that were in a military capacity and have overstand the process of how this financial system operates. And so when they are presenting themselves to be doing that, and then they allow you, or they ask you if you would like to change the name that you're using in already, that when you're participating in the public, and then they exchange documents with people, and then you can change the name that you would like to use, and then they allow you to use it, but they don't give you any further documents on how to operate. So are they purporting to be redeemers and then utilizing information for men and women in a public sense with the documents that they're asking for?
The only way to truly redeem somebody is to teach them.
But if
So,
the only men and women can redeem themselves by knowledge, which means you have to go and get the knowledge yourself, so you are able to redeem yourself. Isn't that the way it's supposed to be? It's not someone else redeeming you, but you redeeming yourself.
no, if you've got your next of kin that can come back and buy off what you sold, or buy back what you sold off, are you going to turn around and sell it off again? See, that's
No, not if you have the right knowledge to be able to not do that.
And that's what I mean. If somebody just comes back and buys back your debt, that's not really a true redemption. So the redemption isn't just buying back the debt. The redemption is the knowledge of knowing that what you did was wrong and you can't keep doing that.
So in the sense of equity in a court setting, for example, when you're sending your communication into these judges, in an equity sense, you're coming to them as a man and you're saying, I'm now absolving or redeeming myself because I was not of the knowing before, and because I am of the knowing, I would like to present myself and correct the record. So going forward, that we both are walking the same path together. Is that correct?
Correct, because you don't want to keep putting liabilities on the public record, which is what's been going on. And they would have to agree with that, because that's part of the reason that they have to keep doing all the things they're doing, is that we're putting a liability on the record when we're not qualified to. What do you mean? Come on up, Harry. I've offered you many times. You guys are mixing equity and at law. Shit won't work. I agree. Equity
So that's
is
like
one thing.
commingling.
Right. Equity is one thing, and courts at law are another thing, or courts of law. They are two different things. You cannot access courts of equity through the state courts. You have to access them through the federal system. No other way.
So through the federal system, would that be through the Supreme Court? Is that correct?
Correct. And it cannot be through a jury. If you're talking about a jury, you're in a court of law, and that's not the right venue. Well, then at least explain what you're talking about. Otherwise, you kind of make it seem kind of confusing to other people. If you're going to sit there and say that we're mixing equity at law, then tell us what the mix is. Okay? No, equity is only through the Supreme Court of the state, which is your federal access. It is not in any other court, I assure you. The courts of law do not deal with judicial. They are judicial administrators proposing that the judicial element and determination has already been set.
So what, Harry? What?
So it sounds like what you're saying.
Equity will not allow a statute to be used as a cloak of fraud.
Exactly.
Equity will not allow an imperfect gift. Equity regards the beneficiary as the true owner. How many of you want, brother? I know equity inside and out.
Yeah, why don't you just get up on panel, Harry? I don't get this guy.
I'm so
Keith,
confused.
what you're saying, a private man will already have to know
Then bring those state cases, Harry, and show me the SEC agreements where they've got the $1 billion bond, surety bond, and the private relief law. Show me those cases, because you don't get those in state cases. You get those in camera, in chambers, equity. That is not case law. You're obviously confused. I don't know who your mentor is. I don't care if it's Rourke. I don't care if it's Gibson. It doesn't happen in state courts. If you think you got equity in state courts, I assure you, they fucked you again. Equity results in a private law of your own. Yeah,
I
my
think just
mentor
me
does
wanted
not.
to say
My
something.
mentor. See, here's the problem. My mentor does not share or teach in public. I'm not
Yeah.
asking your mentor to come share or teach in public. I'm asking you for the sources that say you got equity in a state court through a case law. It doesn't happen. You sit there and say that you can't mix courts at law and courts of equity, and yet you're talking about state courts that promote case law. Show me the equity in that. It's only equitable, and if it wasn't finalized by your own private relief law through the federal courts, then you didn't get equity. You didn't get there. I'm not mad. I'm a little passionate about how you're sitting here confusing people, trying to convince them that they can get this through state court. You cannot. Every
He's
last
playing
one of those
games.
is
Come on with the why so
yeah,
mad shit. Come on, man.
every
Stop playing
every
games.
every
Yeah.
every last one of those is a case law. Ask your mentor, what is the case law on that? And he'll bring up the state case on it. If you have equity, it is not a state case. It is a private equity law in your own name, not the state versus so and so, in your own name.
And Harry, why don't you get up on panel so we can talk to you, since you're texting a lot and typing.
No, he's not going to come up. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I figured.
So coming into
Again.
equity would be your given name of yourself and the other men and women with their given name, and you just dialogue between you two on how you're going to relieve yourself and go forward with now, in a private setting, so you don't have to discuss this
Again,
publicly
it's
with anyone.
yeah. Well, again, it's not a matter really of a discussion or coming to any kind of conclusion in the matter during some kind of debate. You have to create your own remedy. You have to know this stuff and know that by the time you get done, you're going to have your own private relief law. You're going to have your own surety bond. It's going to be on deposit in an escrow account with a private bank or possibly the post office. And it's not going to be a matter of any kind of adjudication in any administrative court ever again. It's got to go through that private escrow first before it can be administrated through a public venue. That's that Foreign Sovereign Immunities Act. If they're going to act in a private commercial capacity, then they damn well better have a private contract and not sit there and pose to have a public contract and that you're some public officer and then won't tell you what the fucking contract is.
Yeah, because that's what they do.
Equity must be before the judge's eyes at all times. Yeah, not some contractor's eyes. See, not some prosecutor's eyes. A prosecutor doesn't belong in equity. See, that's one of the reasons, that's one of the best ways you can tell that you didn't have equity, because you stood in a fucking state courtroom with a fucking prosecutor sitting there. The fuck is it any of his business? This
So
is
the
just
parties,
profound. I'd like to know who your mentor is.
so who are the parties that should be in the setting of equity when you're doing equity, if I may ask?
Yourself and anybody that has aught with you. In other words, remember that the state's vital statistics jurisdiction and all those people that information got disseminated to. You basically have to redo that whole process, send a new notice negating all the notices that were sent out from the enumeration at birth all the way through your life. So everybody you've interacted with, you got to make some kind of attempt to try to get back to them. Hey, records are in error, need to be withdrawn, whatever. However you're going to go about doing it. But I'm not qualified as a citizen, a United States citizen. I'm not qualified as a resident. My apologies for entering that kind of information on your documentation, but it is in error. Every last one of them.
So basically, Keith, what you're saying, any documentation that you utilize from their side of their business. You are putting information in public. So now you want to retrieve anything that you've done and tell them it's an error. So now I'm here to remove that by letting you know it's an error. And so going forward, I will no longer continue to practice those behaviors
Correct.
of
Correct.
behaving, correct?
Right. Hey, Harry. No, I've beat a few cases in court. Child support being one of them. And I'll tell you, 42 U.S. Code 666 B8 has a definition for income. Now notice and pay attention very clearly, people, because 8, for purposes of subsection A and this subsection, the term income means any periodic form of payment due to an individual. First term to know. They're trying to say in child support that you owe money to an individual. Okay? That individual happens to be your own motherfucking child. That they renamed as an individual, as an interloper, an officious intermeddler. How are they intermeddling? Because it goes on to say, regardless of source, including wages, salaries, commissions, bonuses, workers' compensation, disability, payments pursuant to a pension or retirement program, and interest. Now, I want to ask every last one of you motherfuckers who has a greater interest in that child than me. Tell me I owe child support to the child I brought into this world and you took from me. And then tell me I owe child support? No, I don't think so. I've got track record and receipt of everything I give my child, and I don't need some state to interfere with that. I beat child support on principle alone. I didn't need equity on that one. I owe child support? No, I don't think so. I've got track record. Beat child custody twice. Tell me about this shit. Don't sit there and placate that I got 94 cases and didn't one. I won the last one too. Beat him on that one. Discharged. Dismissed. Dismissed. Tell me about this shit. Don't sit there and placate that I got 94 cases and didn't one. I won the last one too. Beat him on that one.
Somebody has the thing playing over, Heath.
Yeah, well.
Just me.
Okay, right here. No, it's JG. Okay. See that? These contempt of court proceedings are dismissed. Because you see 93 cases and don't know how to do your research, like I've said, do your research. You're going to look at those cases. You can see the ones I won and the ones I lost. Placate the wrong thing from your position down there in chat. Like I said, you're always welcome to come up on panel. Bring your mentor and the case law that he poses, he got equity in.
So what's the real goal with child support? What's the real scheme, the real angle?
The bonds on that birth certificate and everything.
They're trying to get at the bonds.
Well, no, they've already got the bond, and they get to write a bond out on with your name on it anytime they want until you figure it out. Once you figure it out, that's when you quit signing shit. They can't keep posting bonds. They try, like in this situation, $350 bond. When it comes to correction of the records, I'm going to let them know that, hey, the $350 bond you posted after 7 years of not having a signature, that's kind of fucking stupid. That could have got you in a lot of trouble.
Gotcha.
Not going to play this shit anymore.
So they're trying to get you in trouble. It's a setup, right, Keith? That's all it is, really?
Absolutely. We're talking about a public education system that poses to teach your children how to operate in this system, when in fact it doesn't teach them how to operate in the system at all. It indoctrinates them into believing that they need to use the legal name with an address and give the social security number when all three of those are false. They also placate that you have to have a social security number in order to get a job and you got to pay taxes. All three of those are false. No, Harry, all you got to do is cam up in the back for me just to make sure that I know who I'm talking to is not a fake. So come on up again. Go ahead, sister.
I'm sorry, I forgot what I was going to say, Brother Keith.
All right, well, if he comes back to you, let me know.
Okay.
What do you mean, let's have the case number? Harry Nutt down there wants the case number. Let's see here.
This guy's talking a lot of trash.
Yeah, for some reason he thinks I'm bluffing.
Yeah, I don't. Do you even know this guy?
Oh, he's been following me around for a couple of years. He's actually a pretty decent guy. He just gets lippy like most people. Thinks I don't know what I'm talking about. That's fine. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't. Because really, I don't have anything in equity under my belt. But I guarantee you, from what I've researched, I've never seen one come through a state court. Not one. Every last one has been through a federal court and ended up with a private relief law in their own name. And I believe I showed you guys the one the other night, $100 billion bond, security bond, based on the birth certificate.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, let me pull that up. I'm going to pull that up since Harry's here. I'm going to show you I know what I'm talking about. Oops. The company is authorized by its ownership and control of the primary bond, the birth certificate, or the certificate of birth, Ontario. This is from Canada, and we are dealing with the Securities and Exchange Commission of the United States because it's the World Securities and Exchange Commission. They deal with world securities, okay? And it's the James A. William Trust, and it's trusted in the District of Columbia as a business trust, and he is the director. Not an administrator, not an executor, not a promoter, the director. Again, you have to learn how to give directions. That's 100 billion United States dollars. Postage shipping tracking number. This is one of them tracking numbers, right? See, that's why they're important. You track the documentation as it gets transferred through the system. Private offset account and bill of exchange. So literally what you're doing is you're setting up your own private offset account. Now tell me anything different. Tell me how one of these other guys, tell me how this mentor of yours got a private offset account set up. Because if he didn't, you didn't have equity and you don't have equity. You're still banking with somebody else as your banker and acting as a slave, signing documents for them, rather than the other way around, a medallion stamp, signature guarantee, where the bank acts as trustee and issues all of your documents for you.
Yeah, it's a lot to learn.
It is. And that's why I said Postal Service, Enterprise Payment System account, international account with a CRID and a MID. That's a merchant identification number and a certified registration identification number for the merchant. It's a double lock system. You don't have two pins in any other system. No, I have not been watching Rourke too much.
This guy's trying to get on your
You didn't
nerves
hear?
today.
Yeah, you didn't hear me say fuck Rourke, fuck Gibson, fuck Pomeroy. I'm living this shit. Rourke thinks he's living it too, but I guarantee you, if he doesn't have his own account set up with his own private relief law, he too hasn't reached equity.
Friday night. Who's in denialism? Is it Harry Nutt or is it Wizard?
Who's that? Just me?
It's JG.
Oh, I thought it was just me.
No, just me's kind of shy. She's a good girl.
Well, she is. I seen her in chat. She's mostly on Venus, I think, and I seen her on OTW.
All right. Try to change the whole topic. Come on. Help me out with equity then. If you think you know equity, come help with equity. Come bring your mentor and help with equity.
He might be trolling.
God, it'd be nice for him just to get up here and so we can have a normal civil conversation instead of doing the chat thing.
Hey, he's not going to do it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Like I said, he's been following me around on my videos for a number of years. He's made various different comments, and he's actually a decent guy. But just like anybody else, he's not a know-it-all, and neither am I. That's why I say if I am wrong, I'll accept it. But I assure you, I'm pretty damn diligent in my research, and I think I'm pretty damn sure I know what I'm talking about. Again, there you go. Again, there you go, doing nothing but reading on video for YouTube, begging people for money. You ain't doing shit, bro. I've been in and out of this court for this recent case, showing people that I'm not afraid to walk in that court. I know what I'm doing. And I didn't have to have a single document. I walked in and spoke it.
All right, so Harry's projecting here, saying you're living in a fantasy.
Yep. Yeah, and if you're getting people out of prison, then what is the aspect you're getting them people out of prison on? Is it the estate and the probate situation that they're in? Because if they get out of prison, they might put them on probation. You know, that's the whole deal, folks. They sit there and talk about probation this and probation that, and not a one of you gets the idea that it's about a probated estate. Did you really fix the estate, Harry? Did you really fix the estate, or does the state still have their hands on the estate? Did you declassify it? Did you take everything out of the aspect of being a public official? I don't think so. That's the whole problem. So. Ain't nobody been coming through with a solution as far as I know of correcting the record. They keep going in and suing people. I don't think so. Guess what? In case you didn't recognize it, Trey Savant and that $28,000 for his 23-minute stay ain't shit to $100 billion, is it, folks?
Ooh, he's indirectly calling you a YouTube wannabe guru.
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't come in this to be no guru. I came in this, I started doing videos to show people my research so that if I am wrong, people can say something about it. But the funny thing is, most people that have something to say about it don't want to come up and discuss it in any kind of Socratic way. They want to sit down there and make odd comments about how you're wrong and can't bring any proof of how they're right. But the funny thing is,
what I said before, Keith, it sounds like the state, what's happening with the state is rape, and the state always has its hand on your ass as long as you're participating.
Yeah. It's all about creditor-debtor relations. Exactly. Deuteronomy 15, verses 1, 2, and 6. You ought to read them. And then realize that debtor-creditor is the usufruct, because they created an estate in your name so they could use it for legal purposes to induce you into believing what they say as supposedly having some kind of authority, when none of it's true. They duped you into believing you're the debtor, and yet they tell you the debtor is located in Washington, D.C. while you're sitting in your fucking couch.
Oh my God.
And no, I'm not doing this because I'm looking for money. If I was looking for money, I'd have done that a long time ago. But the first thing I fucking did was shut down the bank account, quit the fucking job, sold everything off. I'm not the fool you think I am. Because everything I get out of this, if it goes above and beyond what I need, goes straight back into the community. That's what my eyes get big about when I see that $100 billion, is that I can be able to put out $100 billion to this community. Great. Let's get this ball rolling. Because I'm going to teach this community that cocksucker sitting on the bench ain't so highfalutin as he says he is. Because if he had the balls I do, he'd be putting $100 billion out into the community. His crony doing the same thing. We wouldn't have these poor communities. We wouldn't have homeless veterans. You ignorant fucking bitch ass motherfucking slaves.
Oh boy.
You're a child. A man doesn't know. A man knows how to control himself, motherfucker.
Oh,
You don't
God.
know
Just
how
don't-
many. You don't know how many people I've already wanted to smack upside the head, and how much control it's taken not to. I do
Hold
have
on,
people.
Harry.
Just
Harry, you're
because you
saying-
don't. Just because you don't like me getting upset and passionate about things, go cry in your corner as you sit here and complain that I'm crying. I'm not crying, and of course, if you think a man can't sit here and act like this, you're the one that's belligerent. You're the one that has these touchy feelers that thinks about this masculine, toxic masculinity that everybody's talking about. Fuck you, you punk ass motherfuckers.
Oh, wrong day to come on panel.
No,
No,
sister.
you're fine.
Doc,
Who's that? Who's that? Just me or Ayman?
Yeah, that's
Just me.
Oh, just me. You're fine. It's just that's Keith. I mean, sometimes he's emotional. It's all right. I mean, the guy's triggering him on purpose.
I love Brother Keith. He's awesome.
Yeah, he is.
Well, I think that's about all we got, because it is starting to get into a rant session here, and I don't want to do that.
You become passionate once you start relearning, and it's a passion within yourself, between yourself and the Creator. So it is a new walk for us.
Well, yeah, and
Yeah, I know.
that's part of that's what makes it so hard. Is when I realized at 49 years of age that everybody in this society, including my own parents, was absorbed so deeply in their cognitive dissonance that there is no way I'm going to get any help from any of them. I no longer really give a fuck whether they disowned me and told me to change my last name. That's the least of my worries now. Now I have confidence that I'm not going to get help from them, and therefore, hey, that's what pushes me forward in this to this day. I don't need their help. It'd be nice, but I don't give a fuck about anybody else but me at this point. I'm going to take care of me, because all my life everybody's placated to take care of me. If you was taking care of me and you profess to be such this good caretaker, how come I'm out here the one that Harry's accusing of begging for money?
that's all he's got is accusations, man. He's being the child.
There's always a hater somewhere, JJ. That's how it is.
So Keith,
Lots.
can you show a presentation of how you would walk into a setting on camera and present yourself in equity, and then do business to let them know that you are no longer a participant in their world, in their realm?
Oh, that's good.
Sure, that's what I did here. Let me see if I
Do business to.
Good question, Ayman. Am I saying your name right? Is it Ayman or how you say it?
Yes, it's Iman.
Oh, Iman. Okay, Iman.
Yes.
I know how to say it. Iman in terms of Iman. I got you.
Yes, Iman.
Iman.
Yeah.
Yes, Iman.
And just me. Are you the just me I always see on Venus and other? Just to make sure. I didn't know who you were.
Just me.
No,
I
I
am
don't know what
usually
those, I don't know what those platforms are about. I don't participate in much because I'm still learning how to, walk before, I'm crawling now, but I'm learning how to walk and stand on my own too.
No, you're doing fine. I just thought I seen your avatar name just at me. Maybe it's a different person.
no, it's me. I just used it today, but I'm usually under La India Maria.
Oh, okay. So do you? Okay, I got you. Go ahead.
Okay. So when it
No,
comes
the
to the
reason.
summons,
Yeah.
when it comes to the summons, I wrote all over this thing.
This guy's really
Okay.
pissing off.
And notice at the very top, I overwrote above their title, which says jury questionnaire. Notice that's all uppercase. That's a title. So this is a
Yeah.
document of title. And I put up there, Keith Little, this second day of the 11th month in the year of our Lord 2023, benefactor to the beneficiary, document of title in trust, no waiver included, pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure Rule 4. So already, when they sent me the summons itself fails because they didn't send a waiver for personal jurisdiction with it. Sorry, the court has not obtained personal jurisdiction as it's required. Are you a resident of the state of Iowa? No. Are you a United States citizen? No. Excuse me. But in order to serve jury on a jury duty in Iowa, you have to be a resident of Iowa. In order to serve on jury duty in Mississippi, you have to be a resident of Mississippi. In qualifying for jury duty in any of those states, the 50 states of the Union supposedly, you also have the dual citizenship of a United States citizen. This is because the state courts don't have a court of their own. They operate under the courts of the United States. The diplomatic service is because they have to have permission from the United States to file a suit in the courts in the state, which are United States courts, against anybody because there is an obligation on the interest by the United States in every case. Every case. Without fail. You show me one state court that actually has jurisdiction over you, and I will kiss your ass. They do not. They have jurisdiction administratively over estates of decedents, and if the decedent is in fact alive, then they do not have jurisdiction.
Wes, if you're not a resident of Iowa, what do you consider yourself?
I'm a transient, a sojourner with him. I travel and freely move across the lands as I so please under his will.
Okay, so you're a hobo.
You could say that.
Domicile?
No. I dwell. You know
So
what dwell means?
we're dwelling in the house of the Creator when we travel the lands as transient men and women. Is that correct?
No, when we're traveling, we're traveling. When we're not traveling, we are dwelling. In electronics, a dwell is a slight pause at one end of the spectrum before it goes back. It's a dwell. It's a slight pause. That's all we're doing is we're pausing here and there as we sojourn in life with him.
I have to relearn English all over again.
I did.
Oh.
I had to sit down with a thesaurus again and go through dictionaries and etymology, and then I got into epistemology and etiology, and it's just so much. Yes, traveling means commerce. See, you don't have a right to travel, you have a freedom of movement. Freedom of movement. Yes. Freedom of movement.
So you're non-conformist, basically.
Right. So
Yeah.
see, we do actually agree here and there. See.
Spirits in the Material World. Great song, man.
Yeah, I can show you that case number again here, Harry. Let me show you one more time. I'll show you that case number so again you can look it up. It's right there. 01071 Stevie 144311.
Wizard, is this guy like a lawyer or something? Because he keeps saying we.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Keith. We say that we're now moving across the land and through the land, and when we're talking travel, that means we're talking commerce. Is that correct?
Yep. You've got to get down to the specifics of the language. Everything has its own language. Politics has its own language. Science has its own language. Medicine has its own language. Mathematics has its own language. Commerce has its own language. Trade has its own language. Trust has its own language.
Oh, it hurts.
So when, in a sense, excuse me. So in a sense, when you're talking about you're moving through and around the land, when someone talks about the move on, is that the men and the women who are moving through and around the land? Is that correct?
Well, in the courts, when they're talking about the movement, they're talking about the guy moving the motion in the court. That's all they're talking about there. This is stuff that most people don't know and they don't present in courts because they've been going off of other people that have some kind of similar success by using, quote, right to travel and coming out with case laws and stuff. But again, that's still just case law. If you really want to get out of it, you have to get out of that administrative process, and that's by making your own judicial determination. And that's because there has been no real judicial determination yet. Harry, let me help you understand, brother.
Oh my God.
This isn't a matter of everybody being, this isn't a matter of everybody being perfect and professional already and been through this. This is stuff that's going to be taught for eons. So there's always going to be newbies. Do you understand?
Hey, Harry, just because you have one test score, that doesn't mean you got to be a douchebag, man.
I'm not questioning you for wanting to read case law. I'm questioning you for posing that I don't know the first thing about equity, while you pose that your mentor has got all kinds of case law, state case law for equity. It doesn't happen that way. Why don't you try reading some private relief law and learn a little bit more about equity on the outside instead of from somebody who's posing that we got all kinds of equity cases in the state courts. I again assure you, the only way to get equity is through the federal courts because the states only administrate what is already been judicially determined as so and has not been rebutted. So in order to get equity, you have to be able to rebut the adjudication as being judicially determined because there has been no judicial determination yet. That's the problem. You keep dealing with these administrative courts as saying there's already an adjudication or a judicial determination as to that. and that's false. And if you keep going into those courts playing that game as if though that judicial determination has already been made, then you're not reaching equity. I assure you. You walk out of that court and they hand you your fucking ID back. That's stupidity. And there, see, Harry Nuts, just like these administrative courts, they want to try to disposition you by calling you ad hominems. Yes, equity is wherever you bring it, but you can't bring it in the state courts. If you do bring it in the state courts and you think you got a remedy in the state courts, you got stuck in the state courts. Because if you're going to go to a state court for equity, it's a pass-through. And if that state court administrates that case, then you did not pass through. Because again, it's the federal court that makes the judicial determination, not the state court. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, and imposts and excises, not the states. My apologies if somebody called you a name. I might have missed that. But yes, that would be true. If my guest is calling you names and you say something back, go at it. That's why I prefer you up on panel. Anyway, again, like I said, this is getting to be a rant, and I don't want that. So let's get on with the next one. I'm going to be back tomorrow with cooperative trusts. Now, if you want to join me on that, one, Harry, I'd love to have you. Again, tomorrow we're going to be doing one on cooperative trusts, 9 p.m.
Okay,
go ahead, brother.
Before you go, can you repeat that article that you gave with the section and clause number?
That's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1. Congress shall lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises. That's the judicial determination. And that's only done at the federal level. And if there's a question as to that judicial determination, you have to go to the federal level to question it. This is called federal question for federal removal for diversity of citizenship, quo warranto, authority. The state court does not have that authority.
Yo, Harry, if you're going to say people are begging for money, right? If you're going to pigeonhole somebody as saying, oh, yeah, this guy's begging for money, you're making accusations, I got every right to call you a douchebag. Like, if you're being a douchebag and somebody calls you a douchebag, that's on you. Don't start bitching about it.
Well, brother, isn't a workman is worthy of his hire? And so if people feels that the knowledge that Keith brings or whoever brings, and he's worthy of his hire, then you offer to him what you think is true and righteous. It's the only thing so and right to do.
And equity can be brought into any court. I said yes. But if it is adjudicated in that same court, you did not get equity because it's a matter of bringing equity in the court and it acts as a pass-through. It's your access to the federal court because it's an equity situation that the courts of the state cannot handle because they cannot and do not have the congressional authority to do so. If you think you got equity in that state court, again, if you ended up with no private relief law, you lost. You did not get equity. Anyway, we are out. Any last words? All right. I'm going to take that as last words.
Adios.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
You guys know I
Thank
love you.
Keith. I love you too, Keith. Nightfall.
You bet. I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll
You
see
as well.
everybody next time.